in an abundance mindset, you begin to realize that there's nothing truly scarce. And that what exponential technologies are is the force that takes whatever was scarce and makes it abundant. And we can talk about, multiple examples, right? Energy used to be scarce. We used to go and kill whales on the ocean to get whale oil. Then we ravaged mountainsides to get coal. Then we drilled kilometers under the ocean floor. But we live on a planet that's 8,000 times more energy coming from the sun that we consume as a species. It's just not in a usable form, right? What would you think of as more scarce than a perfect diamond, right? A 4, 5, 6, 10 carat diamond. De Beers taught us that you should spend, what is it, like 2 months of your salary to buy your diamond engagement ring. Well, it turns out that we can now manufacture perfect gems, perfect diamonds, rubies, emeralds, whatever you want, and for effectively no cost. It's the cost of methane, electricity, and water. And there are companies like the Diamond Foundry that manufacture this. In fact, the largest jewelry company on the planet just announced this past year that they're going to stop buying, naturally mined gems, and they're going to manufacture them because there's no, child labor, no, ethical issues, and it's a better deal for everybody involved. So we go from scarcity to abundance, right? Google has given us an abundance of information. We'll talk about longevity later. And if we can, start to add 10, 20, 30 healthy years, that buys you the next 10, 20, 30 healthy years, then time starts becoming abundant as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've been looking at is anything that gets digitized goes to zero in cost, which is essentially what you're talking about. And, we're going to be in a world not far away where the cost of electricity is zero.
Yeah, it is true. And if you've got abundant available energy, right? And one of the things that I talk about is that the poorest countries in the world are the sunniest countries in the world, right? Really important implications there. If you have abundant, or let's call it even a squanderable abundance of energy, you can get all the water you want. You can pull water out of the atmosphere. You can desalinate water. And if you have clean water, half the disease burden of planet Earth is due to unclean drinking water. So all of these dominoes begin to tip. You have electricity for internet or to light, to have lights at night for you to read if you're a student. So this becomes an extraordinary world of abundance.
Looking at the next part of your thesis is the exponentiality of all of these technologies. We can't talk about all of them, but there's so many things that are now not ideas. They might have been 10 years ago, like 3D printing was just rolling out, but now these things are all going exponential as they're starting to be adopted and all these networks are interconnecting. How is this all playing out? Because I'm not sure humans are quite prepared for the amount of change we're about to see, because everything is about to change.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, I mean, listen, I've got 10-year-old twin boys, and they are thriving in this universe, right? The challenge is that the majority of our government leadership are typically in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're not prepared for the level of change. So it's the institutions, whether it's government institutions, religious institutions, or the industrial complex that's in place. Those are the groups that are going to have the hardest difficulty. I wrote my last book, which came out over a year ago, called The Future is Faster Than You Think. I looked at what the next decade looks like. What does 2021 through 2030 look like? And painted the picture for how every single industry is going to change. Not a little bit, dramatically, right? I don't care what industry, health, education, insurance, finance, all of these industries are going to get disrupted. And it's not going to be your traditional company that's disrupting you, right? It's not going to be the healthcare companies, down the street that disrupts you. It's, if you're in the healthcare industry, it's going to be Amazon or Google or, Apple, or the multitude of startups coming our way. And the beneficiary for all of this disruption is going to be the general public, right? It's not going to be just disrupting for the heck of disrupting, right? So when Zoom disrupts the travel industry and allows people to work from home, listen, the travel industry suffers, and the large real estate companies that are holding all these office buildings suffer. But the public, the general public, it's like, oh my God, this incredible free resource. It makes my life that much easier. So yes, there's going to be challenges, and we're not prepared for the speed of change. But I am an optimist in terms of these technologies, for the most part, serving humanity and elevating humanity.
And how do you think through the replacement of humans in the labor force, and how we prepare for that, or what role humans might play in a different way?
Real important question. And, I write about this a lot in the following way. To date, we haven't seen a replacement happen, even though it's been discussed and talked about forever, for decades, right? The first time there was a letter written by a bunch of Nobel laureates and top scientists and economists to the President of the United States, warning about the massive disruption in the labor force coming from automation. And that letter was written in the 1960s. And we've seen none of that, right? We used to have rooms filled with individuals, mostly women, copying ledger to ledger to ledger in these banks. And all the automation was going to replace that. And it did. But guess what? We have more employees in banks than any time ever in human history. And so what we're seeing to date is very few of those jobs actually getting replaced. We will replace the jobs that are dull and dangerous and dirty. Those will go away, and robots and AI will replace them. But what we're going to see in the next decade is really around AI human collaboration, where it's individuals working with AI, not being displaced by them. And the other thing I think we'll start to see is the realization that we can divide ourselves into two groups. People who are doing what they absolutely love, what you and I are doing right now, and then people who are doing a job because they want to put food on their table, get insurance for their families. And the hope is that technology will enable people to do what they love more than ever before, and less for just having to earn a living.